This is how to add a buttonhole in your Afghan crochet. So I'm starting out with my sample. I'm using a basic Afghan stitch. I'm working in my sample. I am using a regular crochet hook because the sample is so small. An Afghan hook was rather awkward to use. So I take my button and I figure out where I want to put it on my project or on the item I'm making. And I measure it out, and this button takes about 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. Now the thing to remember is the Afghan stitch is rather stretchy, so my hole will actually become a little bit bigger. So if I'm doing something like the project I'm working on now is a pillow, well, once you button it, it pretty much stays the same. I'm not going to be taking it off and on. However, if you're working on an article of clothing, you may want to tighten up that buttonhole at least one block. So I've decided mine are now 4 for this particular button, and I'm just going to work across the row, picking up my front loop just as you would as you were going to work a normal row, and you come across to the spot where you want to put that buttonhole. So I was going to put my buttonhole started in the next space, and I just lift it up as normal. However, now the next 3 spaces, because I was going to do 4, I'm going to work a single crochet across the next 4 spaces. So it means I go through, so when I pull up my loop, I'm actually pulling it through and then pulling through the 2 loops on the top. So I've worked my single crochet, and that's going to be the bottom of your buttonhole. And now I continue across the row, picking up my loops. And it is important to know before you start making your buttonhole how many loops there are on your hook when you have it cast on across the whole project, because it will be easy to probably drop loops. You may add some, but you probably drop loops. Now you'll notice I'm going to do something a little different. I've had, well, let's see, I started out with 13 loops, so I have 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 13, because I had to count those 3 that I removed. So my loops are right, but as I said, I do something a little bit different. In the foundation row, I add an extra loop, so I take 2 loops across off for each cast off, where many people do the 1 loop and then 2. I'm not able to get the edge on this side nice doing that, so that's why I added the extra loop at the beginning. If you need to know how to do that, you can look at my video that shows, or blog, that shows how to do a basic Afghan stitch, and I also have one that shows you how to finish off, so your whole, the edgings, top, bottom, both sides, come out with a nice chain stitch. Now I'm just going to work across as I normally would. Put that underneath here so we can see a little better. The 2 across, and now when I get to where my buttonhole is, I'm going to make the top of the buttonhole by chaining 3 stitches. So that's to match that bottom. And now I just continue to remove my loops as I normally would. And now this next row, so you see you have your buttonhole space there already. And now your next row, you just continue as you would. I'm going to go through lifting up those beginning. And now when I get to the buttonhole, just go through the back loop, and the reason to go through the back loop is so you have a nice chain edging on the top. So I'm going to go through that back loop and then just put a yarn over and pull it through. And I'm going to do 2 more because I had done a 3. I'm having trouble. Okay, so I have 2 on there, and I have 1 more to do. And I'm going to pull it up, and then you can see the top of the buttonhole has a nice chain edge to it, just like the other side. And now I have to remember to go down and pull up this edge. So I'm continuing across just as I would for the regular Afghan stitch casting on. And I will do a count again of my row. I'm getting on the last stitch here, and then at the very end go behind my 2 end loops to get that on. And now I'm going to stretch it out so you can see the buttonhole, and I'm going to remove 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 13. Good, I still have my number. And I'm going to go across, removing, push this underneath, so I can go across removing. And my buttonhole now is there. And it may look a little loose right now, but as I continue to work, I'm going to add some more rows to finish off the piece that I'm working on. As you continue to work up, it will tighten those stitches also. But you have a clean buttonhole, and you can see it on the piece that I'm actually working on. Let me pull it out here. As you work up a couple extra rows to put an edge on it, you do have a nice buttonhole, and like I said, it is pretty stretchy. So if you're making something that you may be wearing, and you want a little tighter, you know, as you take it off and on, it's going to stretch naturally. So you'll want to make that buttonhole a little bit tighter. If you would like to see written instructions, just go to simpleandsensational.com.